I saw him fall on the field, but the pain was no longer in his shoulder. It was in my chest. After that night, we were no longer just friends. But when he found out that people were already talking about us, he backed off. And I stayed. And it wasn't my choice. The sound of his body hitting the turf still plays in my head. Not the collision, not the crack of helmets or the gas from the crowd. Just the thud. That final, awful thud, like something falling apart inside him. And maybe inside me too. We were 2 minutes into the second quarter. College playoffs. Cold November air biting at our skin. The game was tight. Crowd alive. Jay lined up on the far side. Slot receiver. Fastest on the team. My eyes were locked on him before the snap. Not because I expected him to get the ball. Because I always watched him, even when I shouldn't. The play was a blur. Quick pass, misdirection, Jay cutting sharp across the field. And then the linebacker came out of nowhere. Not late, not dirty, just wrong. His shoulder collided with Jay's ribs mid-spin. His leg twisted under him. And then, that sound. I dropped my helmet and ran before the whistle even stopped echoing. He lay still, blinking fast, teeth clenched. "Don't move me," he muttered, voice tight with pain. "I'm here," I said. My knees hit the turf hard, but I didn't notice. "Just breathe." Trainers came. I stayed. I always stayed. His arm was useless. His knee, not broken, but bad. When they finally got him upright, he leaned into me without thinking, like his body trusted me more than he did. Coach waved us to the tunnel. "Matthews," he barked. "Stick with him. No solo missions, no hero stuff. You're on Jay watch till he's cleared." Jay rolled his eyes. "I'm fine." He wasn't, not even close. Back in the dorm, he tried to pretend he could still function on one good arm and a swollen knee. I offered to help with his hoodie. He refused, then cursed, then let me. We didn't talk about the game, or the fact that he might miss the rest of the season, or that scouts had started showing up just last week. Instead, we talked about coffee, because that's easier than talking about disappointment. He looked at me across the small room we shared. "You're really doing this? Playing nurse?" I shrugged. "Coach's orders." "You don't take orders from anyone." I didn't answer. Truth was, I wasn't here for Coach. I was here because I didn't know how to be anywhere else. Because the sight of him hurt made my chest twist in ways I didn't want to explain. The next few days were routine. Painkillers, physical therapy, short tempers. Jay hated feeling weak, hated depending on anyone. But he didn't push me away. Not physically anyway. Emotionally, that was another story. One night I caught him staring at the ceiling in the dark. His voice was soft, flat. "You ever feel like you only matter when you're useful?" I turned toward him. "Yeah, more than I want to admit." He didn't respond, but something shifted after that. He let me help him stretch before therapy. Let me joke about his stubbornness without snapping. We started moving around campus again, slowly. Him limping, me pacing beside him like backup. He didn't laugh much, but when he did, it felt like spring breaking through winter. Then the whispers started. Small things. A look from a teammate. A comment that wasn't meant to be overheard. I heard one guy say, "Matthews practically sleeps in his bed now," followed by a smirk that made my stomach turn. I didn't tell Jay. Didn't need to. He already knew. His reaction wasn't what I expected. He pulled back. Hard. He stopped letting me help. Brushed me off with sarcasm. Made jokes that landed sharp and wrong. "What, you gonna feed me too now?" "I can still walk. Not that you'd know the difference." People are starting to talk, Ethan. That last one cut deepest. Because it wasn't about them. It was about him. The next night I brought food. He didn't say thank you. Didn't say anything. Just ate in silence while ESPN blared in the background. I stared at the screen but didn't see it. My mind kept replaying how we'd sat in the same room a week ago. Closer, warmer, safer, and how now it felt like glass between us. Later, as I cleaned up, he finally spoke. "It didn't mean anything, you know. The moments. Whatever." I turned slowly. "What moments?" He avoided my eyes. "The late nights. You helping. It was just, I was in pain. Weak. I stood still, like if I didn't move, I wouldn't break. Okay, I said, but it wasn't okay, because those moments, the ones he dismissed, were the only ones that had felt real in a long time. I went to bed early, didn't say goodnight. He didn't either. But in the dark, I heard his voice again, quieter this time, hesitant. Ethan. I didn't answer, because I knew what was coming. He'd shut the door he wasn't ready to open, and left me standing on the other side. I didn't talk to him the next day, not out of pride, just survival. I needed space, not from his injury or even the silence. From that sentence, it didn't mean anything. Like all those nights, those soft moments of care and closeness were just symptoms of pain, of weakness. Like I was just a crutch, something disposable now that he could limp on his own. Jay didn't try to reach out, not in the morning, not during rehab, not when I didn't show up to walk him there. Maybe he was relieved. Maybe he expected me to come back because I always did. But that night, the team group chat lit up. Yo, Matthew's not glued to Barrett's side anymore? Breakup? Damn, guess Nurse Ethan got tired. The jokes were subtle, coated in humor, just enough to give deniability. But I knew the tone. I'd heard it before. That line between mocking and warning. And then someone posted a photo, old from last week. Jay leaning against me, smiling through pain, my arm across his back as we limped off the field. Caption, romantic comedy of the season. It wasn't funny, not to me, not when I saw Jay had liked the post. That was it. I found him outside the gym the next day, halfway through tying his brace. He looked up like he hadn't expected to see me, and maybe he hadn't. You liked it, I said. No small talk, no soft entry. His face gave nothing. What? The post. The joke. It was just a meme. No, I snapped. It was a line you could have drawn, and you didn't. He glanced around like he was worried someone might hear. I stepped closer. I stayed up with you for a week, I said. Skipped practice, carried your stuff, covered for you with coach, and now I'm a punchline you're too afraid to stand up for. He stood slowly, wincing. You think this is easy for me? No, I said, but you made it easier for them. His jaw tightened. You don't get it, Ethan. This isn't just about you and me. Yeah, I said. That's the problem. I turned to walk away. He didn't stop me. Not with words, not even with a look. The next week was brutal. On the field. In my head. I avoided him, but avoiding someone in your dorm, on your team, in your shadow, that's impossible. His presence was everywhere. In the empty seat beside me during film review. In the ache in my gut every time I heard his laugh with someone else. Coach asked me once what happened. I said it was nothing. That was a lie. But how do you explain heartbreak that wasn't allowed to be called love? And the whispers didn't stop. They just got quieter. More cutting. One guy in the locker room said, guess Matthews finally figured out Barrett bats straight. Another added, or maybe not. Maybe he just got bored. Jay heard it. I watched his face. He didn't say a word. That night I packed a bag and slept on the common room couch. I couldn't stand breathing the same air as someone who used to be home. I started hanging out with Eli. He was a sophomore, openly gay, unapologetically loud about it. The kind of guy who never flinched when someone looked sideways. We weren't close before, but I think he saw the storm brewing behind my silence. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a soda one afternoon and said, you can sit here, no one bites. That table, his friends, became a kind of safety net. Not because we talked about it, but because I didn't have to pretend. Jay passed by once, saw me with them. Our eyes met across the quad. He looked surprised, maybe even hurt, but he kept walking. Days blurred, my stats dropped. I didn't care. Coach pulled me aside and asked if I was off my game. I wanted to tell him everything. Instead, I said I was tired. He nodded like that explained it. A week later, I found Jay in the locker room after a late lift. Everyone else had gone. He was sitting alone, shoulders still tight under tape, his hands laced together like he was trying to keep himself from falling apart. I should have walked away, but I didn't. He looked up as I approached. You good? He asked. That made me laugh. You don't get to ask that. I know, he said, voice quiet now. I've been screwing this up. That's generous. He stood slowly, wincing again. I didn't know what to do, Ethan. When people started talking, I panicked. I thought if I played along, it'd go away. I stared at him. You played along with people mocking the one person who never left you. He swallowed. I know. I waited for something, anything, that sounded like it came from his heart, but instead he said, "It just got complicated." I shook my head. No, Jay, it was simple. You made it complicated. He didn't stop me as I walked out again, but I heard his voice behind me. I miss you. I paused, just long enough to say, without turning around, then you should have fought for me. Jay didn't talk to me after that night. I wasn't surprised. He'd built his silence like a wall, and I wasn't going to be the one knocking on it again. I had nothing left to give to someone who chose comfort over truth. But people noticed. When you tear yourself away from someone who used to be part of your rhythm, everyone hears the silence that follows. It crept into locker rooms, hallways, team dinners. Most ignored it. A few didn't. One of them was Eli. He found me after practice, sweat still clinging to both of us. He tossed me a water and asked, "You done pretending yet?" I blinked. Pretending what? That you're okay. That he didn't rip something out of you when he backed off. I didn't answer. Because I've been there, he said more quietly. And it only gets worse when you keep holding the pieces by yourself. I sat down on the bleachers, the cold metal grounding. I thought it was just a phase for him, something passing. Now I think maybe I was. You weren't, Eli said. That's the thing. Guys like that, they don't fake what you described. They just don't know how to hold it when it's real. Eli invited me to a campus LGBTQ group event. I almost said no, but then I thought about how tired I was of avoiding who I was just to make someone else comfortable. So I went. It wasn't what I expected. No spotlights, no grand speeches, just people. Some shy, some loud, all of them tired of hiding. And for the first time since the hit, I exhaled without fear of who might be listening. I didn't speak that first night, but I listened to stories that mirrored mine. Guys who had fallen for teammates, girls who came out and lost everything, people who were still halfway in the closet, just trying to breathe. One guy, Evan, talked about how his boyfriend ghosted him the second someone posted a picture of them holding hands. He told me it wasn't real, Evan said, like it never happened, like I imagined it. I didn't say it out loud, but I thought, me too. A few days later, someone asked Eli if I wanted to help organize the school's annual awareness event. Posters, talks, stories. I hesitated. Then I said yes. It felt right. Not loud, not brave, just right. Word spread. A few teammates made dumb comments. One called it attention-seeking. I ignored it. Jay didn't say anything, but I caught him staring during warm-ups. The look on his face wasn't anger. It was something worse. Guilt. One afternoon, I posted a short paragraph to the campus forum. No name, just truth. He said it was just a weak moment, but I never felt stronger than when I stayed by his side. I never felt more seen than when he let me hold the pieces he couldn't carry, and then he threw them back like they were nothing. That kind of silence hurts more than any insult. I didn't expect a reaction, but it went viral. Not millions of views, not headlines, just real people saying me too. I needed this. I wish I had said it sooner. Even Coach saw it. He didn't say anything directly, but during practice, he clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Good hustle, Matthews." I think that was his version of "I see you." Then came the team meeting. Coach called us in after a close loss. He was fired up, frustrated, pacing like usual. Then he stopped and said, "Some of you think this team is about stats, about clout, about who says what online. Let me remind you, this team is about trust, on and off the field." He looked straight at Jay when he said it. And Jay, he dropped his eyes. After practice, I saw him sitting on the bleachers alone. For a moment, I thought he might come over, say something, own it. He didn't. But the next day, Eli told me Jay had shown up to the LGBTQ event. Not inside, just stood by the door for a while, then left. He looked like a ghost, Eli said. like someone trying to remember who they were before they started hiding. A week later, our team was featured in a student documentary about campus sports culture. The theme was identity, inclusion. Everyone expected the star captain, Marcus, to do most of the talking. Instead, I spoke. They asked me what it meant to be part of a team while dealing with personal stuff. I said, it means showing up, even when it's uncomfortable. It means not disappearing when someone you care about finally shows you who they really are. It wasn't subtle. I didn't want it to be. The video was posted that night. By morning, everyone had seen it, including Jay. That afternoon, I found a note taped to my locker. Just 3 words. I wasn't brave. It wasn't signed. But I didn't need a name. I stood there for a long time, reading it over and over. And for the first time in weeks, the anger cracked. Because he didn't excuse it, didn't defend himself. He named it cowardice. And that mattered more than he probably knew. The note stayed in my locker for days. I didn't throw it away. I didn't answer it either. Not because I was punishing him, because I didn't know if I wanted to reopen something that had already cost me so much. But silence is a strange thing. It either grows roots or dies in the light. Jay's silence had once swallowed me whole. This time it felt different, honest, small, maybe a start. Still, I moved forward. Eli and I kept organizing the awareness event. A night of stories, music, and speakers. Nothing dramatic, just real voices, real faces, the kind of visibility that made it harder for others to pretend we didn't exist. Flyers went up across campus. The same guys who joked in the locker room kept their mouths shut this time. Coach even donated pizza for the after event. I wasn't planning to speak. I had already shared more than enough online. But then, 3 days before the event, I walked into the dining hall and stopped cold. Jay was sitting at a table, not with the team, with Eli. They weren't talking much, but they were there, together. And Jay didn't look like someone trying to blend in. He looked like someone finally admitting he couldn't do this alone. Later, Eli texted me 2 words. He's coming. I didn't reply. The night of the event, the room filled fast. Way more students than we expected. A few faculty showed up too. Even Coach walked in and stood at the back. No whistle, no clipboard, just him, arms crossed, listening. Eli kicked things off. Talked about finding space when the world offers none. About being loud not for attention, but for survival. A few people shared short pieces, poems, stories, quiet memories that broke open the air in the best way. Then my name was called. I hadn't signed up. Eli gave me a small shrug from the side of the room. Someone added you, he mouthed. I should have walked away, but I stood, walked up, took the mic. My hands weren't shaking. I think because I wasn't nervous, just tired of being quiet. I didn't plan to speak tonight, I said, but I think some stories don't give you a choice. They find you. They keep knocking until you let them in. I paused. Then I told them. Everything. Not names, not details, but the arc. How someone I cared about deeply had let fear drive a wedge between us. How silence became a weapon. How I had to rebuild trust in myself, not just in others. When I finished, the room was still. Then came the applause. Soft, not loud. The kind that doesn't demand anything back. I stepped off the stage and made my way to the side. Eli clapped me on the shoulder, pride in his eyes. Then I saw him, Jay, standing by the exit. I couldn't read his expression, but he didn't look away this time. Didn't flinch, didn't hide, just nodded. The next day, something shifted. Not in a dramatic way, no big gestures, but people on campus started looking at me differently. Not in fear or pity, in recognition. One guy from the soccer team pulled me aside and said, "What you said, it helped." Another messaged me later. "I wish I'd had the guts to say that last year." Jay didn't speak to me that week, but I caught him glancing during practice. Not the way he used to, not that quick, stolen look full of guilt. This was something else, like he was finally seeing me the way I saw him all along. Friday's game was tense. Tight score, rough tackles, nerves high. Jay was finally cleared to play again, and Coach didn't waste time. Second quarter, he was on the field. He moved like he never left. But when a safety took a cheap shot near the sideline, Jay went down hard again. Everyone froze. I was already on my feet. He stood up on his own, shook off the hit. Coach called him to the sideline for a breather. He walked back, slow but steady. Then it happened. Just as he reached the sideline, in front of the whole crowd, he looked straight at me and said loud enough for half the bench to hear, "You good, Ethan?" Not Matthews, not Hay. My name. My chest tightened. I nodded. "You?" He smiled. "Getting there." After the game, we didn't talk. Not at first. Not until the crowd cleared, the lights dimmed, and I was headed back toward the locker room alone. Jay caught up to me in the tunnel. He didn't say anything for a while, just walked beside me. Then, "I saw the video." I kept walking. "I read the post too," he added. Silence. He stopped. "You were right. I didn't fight. I let fear win." I turned to him. "Why now?" His eyes didn't shift. "Because someone finally said your name out loud, and I realized I'd never really earned the right to." I stared at him, waiting. Then he said, quiet but clear, "I want to try. I don't know how, but I want to try." I looked at him, this boy who broke me without meaning to, who hid behind fear but never stopped watching, who finally stopped running. "I'm not asking for perfect," I said. "I'm asking for real." He nodded. "Yeah, real. That's what I want too." We didn't jump into anything. There was no dramatic reunion, no public confession, no hand-holding across campus, just a few slow conversations, quiet walks, shared silences that no longer felt like walls. Jay didn't try to fix what had happened. He didn't say it hadn't mattered. He just kept showing up, not to be forgiven, but to be understood. That made all the difference. Sometimes healing isn't about the person who hurt you saying sorry. It's about them proving they finally understand why it mattered. One night after practice, we ended up sitting on the bleachers long after everyone left. It was one of those unplanned moments. Jay didn't look for the right words. He just let them come. "I used to think if I ignored it long enough, it'd go away," he said. "The feelings, the guilt, the fear. But it didn't. It just made me a coward." "You weren't a coward," I replied. He looked at me, eyes steady. "I was, and I'm done pretending I wasn't." I didn't correct him again. We stayed there for a while, just watching the field empty out. Same place where everything had started and fallen apart. And maybe, just maybe, where it was starting again. Jay came out to his mom first. He didn't tell me he was going to. Just showed up the next day with this strange, restless energy. He didn't say much, just that she cried, then hugged him, then cried again. His dad didn't say anything at all. That silence hit him harder than the words ever could have. But he didn't back down, didn't fold into shame. He kept showing up, to practice, to team meetings, to small campus events where people still whispered when they saw us near each other. He didn't run from the stairs anymore. And maybe because he stopped hiding, people stopped looking. Not everyone. Some teammates still kept their distance, but a few nodded at him during drills now. A couple even joined us at the next LGBTQ+ event. Small cracks in the walls we all grew up inside. One night after a game, we sat in his car, not touching, not talking, just breathing. Then he asked, "Are we ever going to call this something?" I thought about it. "I don't need a label," I said. "I need consistency." He nodded like he'd expected that answer, then added, "You'll get that." And somehow I believed him. The campus paper ran a piece a few weeks later. 2 players, 1 story, visibility on and off the field. They didn't name us, but everyone knew. It didn't go viral, but it reached who it needed to. A freshman from another school emailed me. "I watched from the sidelines. I stayed invisible. But your story gave me the courage to finally speak." Another message from someone anonymous said, "I didn't think guys like you existed. Thank you for proving me wrong." I showed them to Jay. He smiled. "That's you." "No," I said. "That's us." We didn't become the perfect couple. We fought. We stumbled. We said the wrong things. He flinched when people stared too long. I withdrew when I felt too exposed. Sometimes we pulled away, but we always found our way back to the conversation. He met my sister eventually. She asked him the hard questions. He didn't flinch. That was the day she stopped calling him The one who hurt you and started calling him by name. One weekend, we volunteered together at a youth shelter. There was this boy, maybe 16, who didn't say a word the whole first day. But by the second day, he sat next to Jay and asked, "Is it true you play football?" Jay nodded. "Yeah." The kid just said, "Cool," and didn't move away. That moment stuck with me longer than most things. We didn't go back to the version of us that broke. We built something new, slower, stronger, without pretending pain never happened. Jay still carried shame some days. I did too. That's what trauma does. It leaves echoes. But we stopped letting it lead. One night, lying beside each other in that half-tired, half-awake space, he whispered, "You don't have to forgive me for all of it." "I already did," I said. "Not for you. For me." He didn't reply, just reached for my hand. Not as a grand gesture, just as something normal, something earned. Months later, we stood together at another campus event, this time as speakers. Eli introduced us. Jay went first. He didn't give a speech, just a story about silence, about fear, about choosing truth when it's the harder road. Then he pointed to me, just once. He stayed true when I didn't. I hurt him, but he never stopped believing there was more to me than the version I showed the world. When it was my turn, I didn't talk about the pain. I talked about rebuilding, about how loving someone isn't about rescuing them. It's about holding space until they're ready to walk into it. We didn't fix each other, but we faced the mess. And from that, we built something better. Not perfect, just real. And that, for me, was finally enough.